Aloha Maui Nui. Hey, this is Josh Porter here.
And Jason Verkart, how you doing?
Welcome to the Solar Coaster.
Episode 43, here we go.
43, the Maui Brewing Company story with...
Yes. This is a kind of a near and dear to our hearts, beer.
Beer. You know, I was promoting the show this morning, Jay, and I was like, wow, I wonder how to go about this. And I thought, this is solar beer. There's basically nothing cooler in the world than solar beer, and it was pretty well responded to. So we have a couple guests in the studio today. We have Garrett Marrero from Maui Brewing Company. Welcome.
Thank you. Aloha, everyone.
So good to have you here. Garrett's a great guy. Gave us a tour of his facility. Totally mind-blowing. Can't even put words to it, really.
We're pretty proud of it.
Oh, we're going to try.
And we have Daithi Mcgee. Is that correct? Did I say it correctly?
Aloha.
All right. I got nervous there at the tail end of that. Daithi Mcgee. Daihi's a really interesting character. We know each other from a variety of places. And you're with Cummins, King Biodiesel, right?
King Power Systems.
King Power Systems.
Yeah, I'm the GM at King Power Systems. Also help design a lot of the systems and implement them.
Gotcha. So we've kind of worked on a couple projects together, a couple new ones coming up in the future, hopefully, as well.
Yeah. You keep it interesting, that's for sure. And
yes, that is my job.
We like to be able to facilitate those kind of interesting asks and provide generators perfect for what you need.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's usually the, hey, Daithi, this thing's never been done before. You want to do it?
Absolutely.
And he's like, oh, not you again,
Sounds
Josh.
like a job for Daithi.
So let's jump right into this, Jay. We'll do some housekeeping and move right into our news and events. What do you say?
Perfect. Let's do it.
Okay, so we are the Solar Coaster, folks. We're here right here on lovely Maui County. Fridays at 1:05 p.m. on KOI 1110 AM. We can also be found on some FM stations: 96.7 FM Central Maui, 96.5 FM West Side, 98.7 FM Upcountry. Call-ins are welcome. Today we're going to ask you to hold calls a little bit towards later in the show because we have so much cool content to cover. And but our call-in line 242-7800 is the way to reach us. So we got a great website. Jay, you want to tell us about the website?
Sure. Go to www.solar-coaster.com. That's solar-coaster.com. You can listen live. You can actually click on the YouTube streaming link right now and jump into the studio with us. We also have all our back catalog of shows there. You click on the podcast link. You can get, if you're interested in a certain show, certain technology that we've talked about in the past, everything is all right there. Scroll down the bottom of the page and you can get on our mailing list or send questions. If you can't send a question during the show, can't call in, send us a question there. It comes right to our mailbox and we'll get right to you.
Absolutely. And we have basically a blog that Jay is remiss in updating, right? Did you get those videos up there, Jay?
It should be.
Are they up there? Okay. Well, I'm remiss in updating the SoundCloud files for our audio and for our podcast. Right. And Jay's on the blog. So I'm going to say that we're looking for an intern. If anybody out there is interested and loves the Solar Coaster, wants to help us out with all this stuff we keep forgetting to do, then give us a shout, and we'll maybe we can get you involved in the Solar Coaster. So we also have some wonderful sponsors, and we have another sponsor that came on actually this week, which we're really stoked about. Maui Solar Project, Tabuchi Electric America, Sonnen Battery, Pika Energy, and Sundrum Solar. Sundrum's just a unbelievable company, and Michael and Thierry and Brian Footlick were really great guys to jump on board and help us out.
They're all really cool. I mean, this is like we keep saying, that the right side of solar companies. These are people we really appreciate. They appreciate what we're doing. We appreciate what they're doing. There's a whole lot of patting on the back going around, but I mean, they're really good companies doing really interesting and cool things in the renewable energy space.
Absolutely. Cutting edge stuff. Quick announcement for one of our sponsors, Maui Solar Project. We have a new booth. We have a new retail space at Queen Kalamanu Mall. I got two cool 55-inch plasmas that used to be in my office and are now sitting in a kiosk. And Jonah put together some awesome videos of all of our sponsors and all the people engaged in the kiosk, and we're really excited to be out there and talk to people face-to-face about some of this new technology. We're also on podcast, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, just kind of breeze right through all that. Shall we jump into our news and events, Jay?
Sounds like a plan. We got a lot to talk about today. So first off, this is a global news story, but it deals with a U.S. company, Microsoft, you may have heard of. They have just signed a deal with Sunseap, which is not a company I had heard of before, but apparently they do a lot through Southeast Asia. They're actually doing a lot of installs and such. They manage networks. And the deal is specific over the next 20 years that Microsoft will pay for and buy the power from rooftop solar installations throughout Singapore. Now, nowhere was I able to figure out how the actual residents would be compensated, but their goal here is 60 megawatts of solar
60
power.
60 megs. Wow.
60 megs across Singapore to power their data centers. And the data centers in Singapore actually power services such as Azure and Office 365 that you're probably aware of and use. But these, it's just an unprecedented amount of power that they are purchasing from rooftop installations.
That's a really unique story, right? Going out into the community saying, hey, we want your rooftop for a specific company, a specific application. But if you spend any time in Singapore, which I actually have a lot of experience there. I used to work there in my 20s when I was out of Tokyo, and there's not a lot of land available. It's a pretty dense place. It's a city-state, right? So those rooftops are super valuable. It makes perfect sense to me. Where else are you going to go? I mean, you could do photovoltaics, pop it out into the harbor, but that's a pretty important space for them.
and could be kind of dangerous depending on the weather.
Or put on top of
it's really unique thing. Like I said, I was not able to dig up. They did not reply by airtime, so I do not know how residents are being compensated for their roof space. But it is a really cool project. Now they're hopeful that this is going to spur other companies to kind of do the same thing. This one deal is actually going to tip Microsoft up to more than 50% of their data center energy needs coming from renewables. An interesting side note is Apple actually signed with a Chinese wind turbine manufacturer in late 2016. Also is taking all of its data center energy use in China from that wind farm. So there's a lot of movement in tech and renewable, like traditional tech, computer tech, and renewable energies.
Well, maybe we could just take a second right there and talk about that big windmill we heard about that was coming out from GE. Maybe Microsoft is going to get involved with that. There's Garrett, there's a windmill that was developed by GE that is 853 feet tall. And what's the megawatt rating on it? Jay, I sent you the article. Is it like 12 megs or something?
It's
basically 12 times the size of the windmills we have here.
Jesus.
Right?
Yeah. It's just
amazing.
This monster thing. They literally put this. You have those scale diagrams. You show like somebody, and then there's the giant robot from Japan, and then there's the Empire State Building and everything else, and it's sitting there next to the Empire State Building, and it fits squarely between the Empire State Building and the Eiffel Tower.
Wow.
It's just gigantic.
Did it say how long the blades were?
As long as a football field, the individual blade.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is good stuff.
We looked at wind here in Maui, but they had to have 2 times the radius, I believe it was, clear around it. So you basically would have been almost our whole lot that would have had to just be for the one, and one turbine would have done it for all of our power.
Right. You're in a pretty good wind channel there, right?
Yeah,
There's a good amount of wind coming down there.
Enormously expensive land to do that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty normal though. I mean, I used to work in microwave telecom, and the same thing for those giant antennas. You have to have that amount of space in case the tower comes down. It's not going to hit anything.
Yeah.
So it makes sense, but geez, that's a lot of land.
Yeah, and we were just a couple weeks ago. We were talking about how those wind turbines out there around the country, some of them are having trouble, and even 2 years into their lifespan, they're like some of them are delaminating, or they're having to put up scaffolding. Guys are up there like re-riveting these windmills. Imagine something of that scale. Hopefully, this one's made to last. So, hey, you want to jump over to the Green Tech Media one about Trump, Jay?
Sure, this is interesting. Trump got up on the podium and was talking about how his policy, his new tariff policy, was reopening plants all over the world. And I think he specifically said the number 5 for whatever reason. There are actually 32 solar plants across the United States. 30 of them were apparently closed, the last 2 on life support. And he says now 5, all of a sudden 5 have just reopened. But doing some actual fact checking, I don't see any indication. Nobody sees any indication that at least 5 plants have opened again.
We've seen a couple of articles over the course of the last couple of weeks, right? And they were talking about that was at one Taiwanese group that was they were talking about putting together a factory. I think it was in Georgia or something to meet their own needs.
Yeah,
on the retail side.
Sure. I mean, there's definitely some conversation that they want to do this, but nowhere have we seen all of a sudden they pull the boards off and start using the manufacturing facilities that already exist again.
They got this,
which is what it was said.
Right, I see. They got this quote here: "The mirage of a U.S. manufacturing renaissance." That's some colorful language there. Right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Actually, we're going to have to follow this closely because I think that, certainly there's some concerns about the tariffs and how it's going to impact, renewable energy deployment throughout the country. But at the same time, we're talking with Andre Richter from Meyer Burger last show. Was it last show? Was Andre?
Yeah.
And he had some great ideas about, domestic manufacturing capabilities and microclimate specific panels, and we'll see where that goes. There's definitely some interesting ideas there. So what's the next one, Jay? That's still from Green Tech, right? SunPower, yeah?
Okay, yeah. SunPower turns to storage for growth in tough times. Now, SunPower, if you remember, is one of those companies that makes really, really high-end panels. They also are getting kind of damaged by this whole tariff situation because they manufacture out of Malaysia. Is it? I don't remember.
I think so. I think it's Malaysia.
I think it's Malaysia. So they have solar panels that they're bringing in. It's a premium product. They charge a lot for these things, but it has been well deserved.
You mean in terms of the technology warranted it? Yeah.
Right. But they're now putting a massive push behind a storage product because solar doesn't seem to have quite the same punch.
Oh, for them in their company.
Yeah. For them in the company, exactly. They had a really tough earnings call was it last week? Last week.
Yeah, just before.
Obviously, yeah, just before airtime last time. But SunPower designated experience 1.7 gigawatts of commercial solar projects. They've been in the industry forever, and only now, I guess, are they really, really taking storage seriously. But that's fantastic for storage. I mean, more people out there developing storage products will drive innovation and hopefully drive prices down a bit.
And guys, we're
a bit more.
We're all familiar with SunPower, been in the business, right? These guys, when they get into something, they're real innovators.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and like you said,
that's what I'm
seeing
really,
money
really
go into it is nice.
Yeah. I think that, SunPower is interesting. By the way, we're going to have a SunPower show. Got on the horn with Sarah Almondeo here in Maui last week, and we're looking forward to kind of filling in the gaps in our PV discussion, and specifically with SunPower, because it's a really kind of a separate technology. It's something that's really unique and has kind of had that high efficiency early on, but I could see how the tariffs would make a big impact on their business because, it's percentage-based tariff, and that's going to hit them hard.
Yeah. That and the fact that they've been kind of using their proprietary tech for so long, a lot of the industry has kind of caught up. I mean, the numbers now from an LG or a Panasonic or something are getting pretty close.
I think they're going to be competing with the SmartWire bifacials from Meyer Burger.
You like that a lot.
Yeah, I just kind of, geez, I can't help myself. I get into certain brands, I get super stoked about this technology. But I mean, if you think about the bifacials, it's an inexpensive approach to getting a lot more power depending on where your geography is. And so I think if they're going to be going head to head with that, they got some R&D to do, in my opinion. So we'll see. But they're also on the residential side, they're launching their Equinox program. So we're going to hear all about that from Sarah in the upcoming weeks. Really stoked about that. So
excellent.
All right, SunPower is in the fight.
Hopefully Hopefully she'll be ready to talk about storage a little bit because I'm interested to see what they've got under the table.
Definitely. Now, big news. We were just talking about this when everybody rolled into the studio. Let's go into Hawaii and Maui. We have a massive RFP from HEI, from Hawaiian Electric, from HECO, from MECO. What is it, guys? Daithi, you want to jump in on this one?
Yeah, sure. I'm just looking at those numbers right now.
It's about, from what I understand, we got 60 megawatts of renewable RFP that was put out. We got about, I think, 60 days, right?
Or something like that.
Yeah. And
so the governor signed in the proclamation saying that we want to 100% renewable by 2040.
Right.
5.
Yeah. 45. Yeah.
2045. So as we're retiring plants throughout the island, we want to go with renewables on those plants. So Kahalui is coming up to be retired in 2022, and Maui Electric would like to have that replaced with something renewable.
There you go.
So at the moment they're, I believe, still in design phase, trying to find the best option for their customers. To bring the prices down and to have longevity and to stabilize the grid as we see it. So that's the kind of considerations that they have at the moment.
Yeah, so 60 megawatts of renewables for Maui, right? That's the RFP. It's due April 30th. If any of y'all out there think that you can put together a great RFP for MECO and solve our energy problems, just chuck it out to MECO and maybe you'll win that bid. But 60 megawatts is no small thing, right? That's a lot of power. I mean, that's the biggest thing that's happened in Maui. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So and then in Oahu we're looking at 200 megawatts.
Yeah, 220 actually.
220?
Yeah.
Okay, so wow.
That's a lot of juice.
I was just gonna say that. That's a lot of juice.
That's a lot of juice. That's a lot of juice. Yeah. So that's like, that's like basically like, this guy's got about a megawatt on his business. So I think it's
60 times that is a lot.
A sense of scale. This is exciting stuff. I'll tell you what, just from the percolation inside of the industry, everyone's getting excited. There's a lot of little texts and calls going back and forth.
There's going to be so much of this, though. We're looking down the barrel now. I mean, before it was, 2045 is kind of far away. Okay, we'll get there eventually. And now we're in
crunch time already.
Almost 2020. We need time to actually roll these things out, and they need to start getting on the ball. So yeah, if you're interested in bidding on this, go to hawaiianelectric.com/competitive bidding. You can submit your RFP. They do want a whole lot of hard copies and electronics. Read through the requirements, but it's open to all renewables, which is the interesting thing. I mean, we may see some like wave action generators or something show up. It would be really interesting to see what people are going to say. They're also encouraging bidders to integrate storage. So that should be part of the proposals.
There you go.
Has anyone ever talked about plasma incineration here? I mean,
plasma incineration. I don't know what that is.
Well, it's like incineration, but I think anytime you say incinerator, people freak out. They're like, "Oh my God, it's like burning coal."
Stop the burn.
Yeah, and it's not that at all. I mean, it's super clean. I know Denmark and Norway use it a lot, so much that they have to import trash from surrounding countries, and they're paid to take the trash. And I'm just thinking, we've got a steam turbine sitting over at HCNS that used to provide 5% of the island's power, and so much trash that sometimes you can't take your stuff to the dump. So why don't we look at mating a plasma incinerator to that steam turbine, getting rid of all of our construction debris? It separates non-ferrous and ferrous metals, and now you have scrap to sell. It's like, why aren't we talking about that as a technology?
Maybe we could partner up and we could submit that to the
I would love to.
To the RFP.
I don't know if I have time to get it in by the 30th, but I think it's a no-brainer. I mean,
interesting.
We have to ship pallets off the island, and pallets are... It's wood. It'll burn and it'll turn a turbine.
Well, there's some activity going on right now. The mayor was on the show about a month ago, and he talked about what was happening at the landfill. So there's some activity there, but I think it's a methane-related project, yeah?
Yeah, so they're reclaiming the methane from that, and they've got currently about 2 megawatts of methane just being burned off at the moment. It's not clean enough to actually be used as a power source. So the considerations that you have to have are firm power versus on and off power. So, as much as you want to, fire up your generator and produce power to the grid whenever you want, that will then destabilize the grid. They have efficiency problems with, say, Ma'alaya, where they use the waste heat from their generators to produce steam for steam turbines to make it more efficient in Ma'alaya. This is Miko. So if you start introducing more power, you'll take away that heat energy that they would have had extra for the steam turbines, and then they lose all their efficiency.
Oh wow.
So that's why a lot of the wind turbines have to be shut down at night, because there's enough they have to be curtailed so they can keep the Ma'alaya plant as efficient as possible.
Right. And does this kind of chalk up to antiquated equipment? I mean, is it?
Yes.
Right? Is that what we're describing?
It's the reliance of, say, diesel for big diesel engines. Their efficiency is about 50%, but then if you can recover that waste heat through economizers and then the steam turbine, you can bring that all the way up to about 100% efficiency.
Jay, I think Daihi's going to get his own segment on the show. What do you think?
Sounds like a plan.
He's sounding pretty good. All right, so we're all excited about what's going on with Maui Electric, and So
there's 2 sections to this RFP. There's one which is the firm power, and then there's 5 megawatts for whoever wants to actually have any ideas where they just want to give the power when they want to.
Okay.
So Maui Electric are happy to take 5 megs off and on. So you can produce solar, you can produce wind. They want it a bit more firmer than just we've got these solar panels, push them in.
Right.
Because obviously nighttime there isn't the same kind of... But the plasma could come into that 5 megawatt RFP where you can... And it is part of the renewables project, is just to have 5 megs of renewable that isn't as firm as this other RFP, which is just for firm power.
It feels that's an unbelievable explanation. Thank you so much for that. And it feels like we're getting to a place right now where 2045 doesn't seem so ambitious, frankly. I mean, we had when Mayor Arakawa was on
4045 so long from now.
When Mayor Arakawa was on, he said that if wheeling is passed at the ledge, he thinks will be 100% renewable in 5 years.
Yeah.
Right, so I mean, it's pretty. It's an exciting time, and I think we're all in a really cool industry and doing some fun stuff. So why don't we wrap on our news and events? We'll jump into our commercials, and when we get back, we're going to learn all about Maui Brewing Company with Garrett, and some good content from Daithi too, I'm sure.
Aloha and welcome to Maui Solar Project. It is easy to feel rejuvenated just stepping outside on a magnificent Hawaiian day. Maui Solar Project is here to help harness that energy you feel in your body and use it to power your homes and businesses. As lore tells us, Maui harnessed the sun so as to slow its path across the sky. Join Maui Solar Project as we harness the sun's energy and slow Hawaii's dependence on fossil fuels. Call Maui Solar Project at 269-2352, mauisolarproject.org.
Daithi Electric, a leading worldwide inverter manufacturer, presents the second generation of the eco-intelligent battery system, the IBIS. Daithi's grid-friendly system includes a high-efficiency inverter, stackable batteries, and integration with Jelly software for the most adaptable battery storage system on the market. The system is optimized for energy management and cost performance. Maximize your solar investment with Daithi Electric eco-intelligent battery system.
The Sonnen Battery Eco is an energy storage solution that utilizes intelligent energy management software. The system is available in a variety of storage capacities and allows for expansion. Sonnen Battery Eco allows you to save money by harvesting energy from your solar PV system and using that stored energy when rates are more expensive. Sonnen Battery Eco is specifically designed to provide you and your family peace of mind in the event of power outage. Our unique power detection system will sense outages in real time and automatically switch over to battery power. See Sonnen Battery Eco at sonnen-battery.com.
MIT founded Pika Energy, makers of the Pika Energy Island, a smart energy management system that uses solar panels, lithium batteries, and intelligence to manage your energy and keep you powered even during outages. With a clean, intelligent alternative to grid power, you're in control of your energy future. Pika's Energy Island lets you manage electrical costs with HECO-ready self-supply functions. Pika's largest battery, the Harbor Plus, offers 16 kilowatt hours of stored energy and can power loads of up to 10 kilowatts. And if you need more capacity, just add a second or even third Harbor Smart battery to the same system for a maximum of 48 kilowatt hours of usable storage. Pika Energy, own your power. To learn more, visit pika-energy.com.
Sundrum Solar is the manufacturer of a revolutionary thermal collector that fits on the underside of your standard PV panel to maximize energy capture per square foot. The Sundrum Solar hybrid PVT system, combined photovoltaic and thermal, holds the world record for peak hour efficiency, capturing an astounding 86% usable energy. Learn how Sundrum Solar vastly improves electric, heating, and cooling economics at sundrumsolar.com.
So they get added to your panel.
All right. So those were our commercials. We got our new sponsor, Sundrum, represented well by Jonah Heller here.
Hey, thanks, everybody.
That was really cool, Jonah. And I want to give a shout out to Melissa Ramirez for her Daithi Electric commercial, which has been a nice kind of thing to have over the course of the last how many months? It was recorded a while back, right? So, yeah, there we go. So let's jump right in. Lastly, excuse me, Jay, that was Jason's original Eurorack music that he creates. Pretty remarkable stuff that he does over there, and we put it into our show. So nice work, Jay. Thanks for that. So we're really fortunate here at the Coaster today to have Garrett to talk about his journey with Maui Brewing Company. I can't even believe it, almost like an off-grid independent brewing company in Maui that kind of services the world, inspires the world. Really,
that's the dream.
Yeah, it's just unreal. You know, we after we had a big tour. Everybody from the team came out. You were super gracious to take us around. Thank you.
No problem.
Unbelievable. We felt all VIP-ish and stuff. And then we went out to have some beers, of course. You know, I was saying to you, I was like, geez, this is like the biggest beer tease I've ever had in my life. Yeah. You're explaining everything.
Save the beer for the end.
I'm like, oh, geez, I need a beer.
It's like to build up that, excitement.
It's unreal. So. We went out, we had some beers. It was great. And then we sat down and had some lunch at your new restaurant.
Oh, cool.
And, so we took the opportunity to ask one of your staff members what it was like working at Maui Brewing Company. I think her name was Anja. Did I say
Anja, server,
real sweetheart, and she just said that it was, she really believed and had complete kind of like enthusiasm about this local focus. She's like, it's so true. It's a great place to be. People are happy here. It's just a wonderful place to work, and you could see it was just effusing with this kind of admiration for the place she works. So that's the environment that you created, my friend.
That's great to know. That's always a struggle when you grow. You started with a little over 20 people back in 2005, and now I think across the entire state we sit almost at about 600 now. So it's as we've grown,
staff.
The culture definitely has been challenged many times.
Wow.
So it's
bravo, man.
And to keep the quality up with 600 employees is fantastic.
Yeah. It's a tribute to our team, definitely. I can't take all the credit, that's for sure.
Right, it's definitely a big group of people too, doing a lot of great work. So, well, we're going to hear all about Maui Brewing Company here from Garrett, and we got a lot of the great tech yesterday, and we got a sense for the context of the whole amazing kind of structure that you're building. I mean, it's just, if you get a chance, go to the tours. Everybody, check it out. We went to the brew house, the brew pub in Kihei. Is that how you term it?
Yeah, we call it production brewery and brew pub. Yeah. So it's really. It's a unique situation because it is such a large brewery attached to the restaurant, but it started off as the production brewery and tasting room, and then the restaurant was just added about a month ago.
Gotcha.
So we just say the Kihei Brewery.
So
mothership.
Okay. The mothership. I like that. So maybe asking yourself, why a brewery? Why is the Solar Coaster talking about a brewery? Well, there's just a massive amount of solar, and you have a massive energy use, right?
Yep.
What is your average monthly use, roughly speaking, either in dollars or kilowatt hours or whatever you want to say?
I forget the kilowatt hours. I speak in dollars coming from finance, but it's between $40,000 and $50,000 a month.
Okay.
So
that's a pretty big bill.
Yeah, it's a pretty big bill.
So
brewing is very energy intensive, and I think if you historically look at brewing, there's always been a measure of sustainability. I mean, this is going back centuries. Even though we didn't have PV back 1,000 years ago when they were brewing, breweries were located near bakeries and farms because they had this waste stream flow that would go between them, where the brewery would get the grain from the farm they'd brew the beer and then send the grain either to the farmers for cattle feed or to the bakery next door to make bread and flour. So you have this closed loop, and I think I mentioned the term foam to table yesterday.
Yeah, you did. It was a good one.
And that's existed forever. And we're taking that even steps beyond by then creating our own energy on site with the goal of being grid independent. And that's both from a propane, electrical, and even CO2 standpoint, since we'll be doing our own CO2 recovery. But it really is trying. My dream is that someone picks up a can of our beer anywhere in the world, because we produce 100% of it in Hawaii, and knows that A, that came from Hawaii, and B, it has the lowest or one of the lowest carbon footprints of any beer that they could pick up out there. And it's just showing that we can responsibly manufacture in Hawaii and be successful. Those things don't usually go together when people think Hawaii and manufacturing.
Right. Wow. Yeah. No. It definitely. When we first got out there, I thought to myself, all right, well, this guy's got a big solar system. He's got a bunch of batteries, so we should probably talk to him, right?
Yeah.
Then we get in there, and then the whole vision of what he was doing just kind of opened up, and I saw how many different, you were working in these how to create efficiencies at every stage of the process. So if you go and take that tour, Garrett or someone that's doing the tour will walk you through it, and it's right from step one all the way to the beer that comes. You get into one of your cans or into the tank, and it was really, there's so much going on there. And I think I asked you at one point, I was like, well, who's the wise old man that puts all this together? And he's like, that's kind of me. So he just figured it out over time. So
I started the company when I was 26, so I feel like the old timer now at the brewery, but I think I'm definitely the longest tenured employee, but we have a few people not far behind me too, but got a great team over there, and I think everyone has that buy-in to what we do and why we do it. And that's where I may be the old man who's kind of dreaming it all up and figuring out a way to pay for it, but we've got like I said, 600 people behind us, making us who we are.
That's kind of how it goes, right? When you run a company, they're figuring out how to pay for it. That's the big role right there. I really after getting that perspective from Anja and hearing about your the tour that you provided and everything, I really started to scratch my head and go, well, how did it start? So why don't we start right where in the beginning? Can you tell us a little bit about the early days?
Sure. I still have nightmares about the early days sometimes. I would say, I think going back to 2005, I think the brewery started officially January 28th, 2005, and that was a small brew pub up in Kahana, so northwest Maui, 7-barrel brew house, full restaurant. never run a restaurant before, never run a brewery before, but it was a dream. And it came about because I was vacationing from California. I was born and raised in San Diego. I was living in Northern California
all
at the
that
time.
brewery action out
there. A lot
there.
of brewery action.
Yeah.
And I was drinking, San Diego beer and Stone Brewing Company. Great friends of mine. They had opened up the year I graduated high school. Yeah. And I remember my grandpa brought a keg of Stone Pale Ale to my graduation party. Of course, we drank good beer, very European family, so kids were allowed to drink beer, with family. But anyhow, fast forward to vacationing to Hawaii, drinking the local beer and say, oh, this is cool, because anywhere I went, I drank local, wanted to see what's special.
Like Pyramid, or what were some of the ones? Is Pyramid local? I can't remember. There's a couple
here in Hawaii, or in
what is it again?
Primo was
Primo was one at one time, but they stopped brewing Primo here, I think, in the early 70s. So before I was even born, But anywhere I travel to, I believe you experience a culture and the people through its food and its drink. Mm-hmm. So I think there's so much emphasis that needs to be placed on authentic local. And so fast forward to 3 years later, so 5 or 6 trips to Hawaii, I learned that the local beer, and I'm doing the quotes for the video, that wasn't actually made locally. It was made closer to me, where I lived in San Francisco at the time, Kona being brewed in Portland. That to me was just so deceitful and disheartening to me as a beer drinker that I said, well, we should do that. Why can't we make real local beer? And so I remember getting home and connecting to the internet and being like, is Maui Brewing Company as a domain name available? And it was.
Oh, man.
No one had registered the business name, so I did, and I bought the domain just in case I could do it.
Yeah.
And that was probably early 03, late 02. So fast forward to 05, we opened and did 300 barrels that first year, and then just kept growing and growing. And this year we'll do about 60,000 barrels worth of beer. And a barrel is 31 gallons in the U.S. So, the large kegs I think I mentioned doing keg stands on, that's a half barrel. So, you can imagine going from 300 barrels to 60,000 barrels, or 600 kegs to 120,000 kegs. And it's been a big volume growth. But as Daithi mentioned, quality and consistency is something that makes it even more challenging along the way.
Definitely. I got it. Just like I mentioned to you when we were in the tour the other day, that when I first came out to Hawaii about 10 years ago, I was like, and I feel the same exact way that you do. Like the food and the beer and the wine, these things kind of speak to the culture, right? Mm-hmm. So I kind of started to explore it, and I heard there's a brewing company up in West Maui, and I drove out there, and I was so into it, and I was bringing growlers back like crazy. My friends were like, "Geez, Josh, stop!" I'm like, "Look, this is guava, and this is this, and this thing's called the Black Pearl," and they weren't supposed to give me a growler, but I got them to do it. You know what I'm talking about?
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, Jay suffered that. I brought all the great beer to his house.
That was horrible. I'm sure
it was awful.
So I really appreciated it right out of the gate. Right out of the gate.
Well, back then too, no one knew what an IPA was, or why you would drink it, or a double IPA, or a Belgian quad, or why is that beer so dark, or God forbid you put it in a can. Why'd you do that? So we had a huge amount of education that had to be done in order for Hawaii to understand what we were doing. But I know guys who used to drink Heineken like it was their job, who now call up like, hey, when's the triple IPA coming back? Or
there's a following.
Right? And it's just because they found a reason to drink beer other than that's what their uncle or their grandpa or their father drank. And it's something they actually liked and didn't just do because they'd be shamed for not.
That's amazing. So now I can imagine at a certain stage you start looking at your electric bill. It starts growing and growing and growing, and you have unique challenges, right? Like the cost of certain kinds of inputs. We were talking about CO2. Is 30 times,
10 times the national average.
10 times the national average. And then of course electricity is a multiple over the national average. You have all these inputs that are now a lot more expensive than your mainland counterparts.
Absolutely.
And so now you put on your innovation hat, and then you start thinking, what are some of the first things you did to try to become more efficient, more sustainable in your operations?
Sure. Well, even back early days like 05, 06, 07 in the pub, I started plumbing copper coils into the cold room to the ice machine so that I could pre-cool the water going into the ice machine. So it would A, extend the life of the ice machine, and B, get me more ice quicker. Yep. So little things like that, or anytime I saw there was heat blowing off of something, how can we heat something with that?
That was the indicator. That doesn't look efficient.
How can we make this better? And part of it came from just the fact that we were broke, and it was how do you minimize your expenses, and anything I could do to figure that out. was what I did, and I'd get online and research stuff. And I was telling you about panels, like the sun drum panels. I was like, I thought about that like over a decade ago. I remember thinking, hey, they'll be much more efficient because they'll be cooled, and then you get the hot water. And then I had people saying, no,
it's
that's
a curious
not gonna
mind.
work.
It's a curious mind that creates these kinds of things.
Absolutely. And you fast forward that to now looking at spent grain and how you handle that. We have so much of it and there's not enough farmers here to take all of it. So we look at drying it and burning it to be able to create steam and create a turbine, or just at least create the steam for the brew house. Any way that you can use a waste stream in order to then turn it into energy is kind of our focus now. And that's where even anaerobic digestion is something that we're excited about and potentially we'll look at down the road. Once we have this big project done. But
such a wealth of knowledge. I had no idea I was dealing with an energy geek just like us when we walked in there.
For sure.
Great.
And Jay, as we were in there, and Jay, you'll have an opportunity. I'll take him for an after show tour, hopefully, and maybe we can hook up with you again.
Of course.
And then but one of the things that I thought when we were there is there's so much information and data, like potential. So how would you potentially represent that to your community once you get it all up and running? I started trying to figure out the infographic. And I'm like, well, that's a tough one.
It is.
There's a lot going on here,
and there's only so much room on the can for sure. So for us, we look at it as something we will do once the project's complete. I think I mentioned it yesterday. I started trying to digest the information now, and it just was just blowing my mind. So I figured, let's get it implemented and actually see what the total project yields, as opposed to constantly updating it. Let's get to that baseline and then be able to show that. I envision whether it be something that we push out over the Wi-Fi or something that is on screens in the lobby and in the restaurant, or at different various stops along the way of the tour, just showing, hey, this equipment is using this amount of energy. Here's what it normally would be, but here's where it is because of our initiatives. But the CO2 one I'm really excited about as well, because that just doesn't happen in our industry, because CO2 nationally is so cheap. But for us, it's, like I said, 10 times the national average. So, where we spent, say, $500,000, $600,000 in CO2 last year, we'll be able to capture all of our CO2 that would normally vent to the environment. And that, I think, based on last year's numbers, is about 1.2 million pounds of CO2 that will get removed from the environment through this CO2 recovery system.
Yeah, this was definitely a really interesting part of the tour, because you have these kind of tubes coming into a room, and there are these kind of kegs, like plastic kegs or something, and then there's these percolating, like bubbling, it's like a lab, like a mad scientist lab or something, and that's the CO2, and you're going to and I asked you right there, I was like, well, what's it used for? Because it wasn't obvious to me. Well, that's how we get our carbonation.
Exactly.
So you reintroduce it to the beer, and you get your carbonation. And
it's how, when you think of a beer, it's, got that snap and fizz when you open up the can and you pour it into a glass. It's got that nice head. You wouldn't get that normally without forced carbonating beer or doing some sort of other natural carbonation method. But we need it for our CO2 or for our soda line. We need it for our canned cocktails to be coming soon. Any sort of beverage that you need bubbles in is going to either need nitrogen or CO2.
And to your knowledge, other breweries are not doing that across the country yet.
Well, so our friends at Alaska Brewing Company have a much larger scale, older system. They're a much, much bigger brewery than us. So I think the way I mentioned yesterday was that at our size, there's no one doing it. And I think the next closest is probably 4 times our size that's doing it. Even breweries as big as Sierra Nevada and New Belgium are not doing it, because it still just doesn't pay when it's 2 cents a pound where they come, where their breweries are. It's not going to have a payback for them, so it doesn't necessarily make sense until we get to a carbon offset, a carbon credit, any situation like that. Then there might be incentives to do it. Which is, look at what happened with solar when you started taking credits away or talking about taking credits away.
Right.
That was it. Credits make the industry grow, and taking them away makes it shrink. So I think we could have a CO2 recovery system grow if we had any sort of credit.
Interesting. That's amazing.
It's like wastewater and digestion. It's 10%. It's not enough to incentivize the financial side of things.
Right. There's this theme throughout the show where we see this kind of innovation happening in the islands. And when I saw that, I thought, that's innovation that's happening here for a specific financial reason, as well as a sustainable reason. And that's something that could be applicable in a lot of other environments around the world. But what would be the thing that would make it possible? Well, maybe it's like an incentive. Maybe it's a federal incentive or something like that. So
it's like Dennis Miller says, we'll figure it out when we'll figure out how to deal with no oil when we run out of oil. And it's you got to find a way to pay for it. And for us, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it's so great. We just want to have a low carbon footprint. a very big part of it. Like, we feel responsible manufacturing is step one. But there's a fiscal side of things that for us to be able to accurately control costs in perpetuity and know that what our CO2 costs are going to be in 10 years or what our electricity costs are going to be in 10 years, all of that helps to stabilize bottom line and foundation of the company, because I owe it to 600 families out there to make sure that their paychecks are paid every 2 weeks. So I can't just be willy-nilly with these things. They have to actually make sense. And between the ROI on savings from energy and also the tax credits, these things actually work. Yeah.
Creates long-term opportunities for the entire community.
Yeah, and a company that'll be around long past me.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right, well, let's talk about some of the tech that we typically delve into: PV, storage, backup gen. Let's get a sense for some of the kind of like the big hitters out there. So, how much solar do you have on the roof? What kind of solar is it?
So I don't remember who the panels come from actually right now, but Zero Base Energy is doing our whole solar. They're specialized in off-grid systems, and the installer's based out of Oahu.
Okay.
It's Apex Solar or Apex Wired, and then we have Tesla Power Packs. I think once they're all in, it'll be about 3.5 megawatt hours of storage, just shy of 1.2 megawatts of solar panels. We have about 15,000 square feet of solar thermal to create hot water for the brewing process and cleaning as well. And that'll all be backed up by biodiesel generators that Daihi's providing.
Right.
So maybe you could
give us a sense of the scale of the generators. Daihi.
Yeah, so we've got two 275 kilowatt, what are they, QSL 9 liter engines running biodiesel.
Bio, not fossil fuel based.
No, 100% biodiesel. And it took a bit to convince Cummins to go B100 to actually keep a warranty on them. It isn't a national thing to be able to get biodiesel as a 100% warranty, but Cummins are happy to do it. They just had to have their arm twisted a little bit to have it written in. As much as a promise is worth, it's better in writing.
Yeah.
So that was basically when Garrett and I talked about it. Big thing for us was to make sure that we could actually do 100% biodiesel in it. A lot of times they say B10 or B20 is okay. Or B50 perhaps, and B20 is just 20% biodiesel per. Okay. The rest is all fossil fuel.
This is B100, did I hear that?
B100, yeah, 100% biodiesel.
So it would be 100%. Okay.
From Pacific Biodiesel.
Pacific Biodiesel, yeah.
So with a combo of megawatt, 1.2 megs or something like that of PV, solar thermal, Tesla Power Packs that are currently about a megawatt, right?
Yep.
And then you got another couple megs coming in, right? With the twos, right?
Yeah.
The second version. And the biodiesel, 275 kilowatt biodiesel backup generators. You've got your own kind of like microgrid there, right? You're really basically your own electrical system.
Yeah, we will be grid tied, so we can switch over to the grid, but the idea being that demand charges are so punitive, and I think I described it in one meeting that had a lot of very upset people in the room when I said it. You can imagine who. I said, well, demand charge is like charging for air. It's already there. Like, you don't need to like put in new equipment so that you could meet my demand. If anything, now you have extra energy. And I'm not a scientist. I don't understand all this engineering stuff. But I know you've already got it, and you're not going to run out and make investments, which is what the demand charge is supposed to be about. And it's charging for something that already exists. And if we use it, God forbid, you can never average down to zero unless you keep hitting the demand charge and lower it by averaging down throughout the year. So if we hit it for 15 minutes and we're at 300 kW,
then that's you for a while.
That's the entire year. You're at $6,000 a month. If you go to zero for the next 11 months, but now if you drop it by half the next month, then it averages down, and by half the next month. So you'd have to purposefully connect to grid and drop.
So you have to game it, right?
Exactly. So we said, well, screw it. We'll just put in a bunch of generators. Call Daithi, and they figured it out. On because they are our grid when we don't have solar or battery, and Miko is. They're a distant one, and we will choose: do we run today or do we not? Whether we want to get on the grid.
This was mind-blowing. I really didn't expect this. And if I understand correctly, you're literally behind a transfer switch that is turned off for the electric grid,
Yeah.
and you're running independently, and if you come get together and say, hey, maybe we should use the grid power, you have to go out there and flip that switch.
Essentially, yeah.
Right.
And I don't know if it's like a button you push or if it's this huge lever. I envision this huge
lever.
like a Frankenstein, in the lab. So that would be.
We can
epic.
make the lever.
Can we get
so
one
you
of
can
those?
use the lever and it'll activate the switch.
Go back to the picture
like
of it. I
this,
want to
right?
see
Yeah.
exactly what it looks like.
Yeah. But that was our. It's just we don't like to. I mean, I don't like to hear no, anyways, especially when there's no reason to. Like, how do we solve the problem, guys? Don't keep giving me problems. Let's get solutions. And if you don't want to play ball, we don't need you. There's technology out there that we don't need the grid. I mean, we've had 3 or 4 power outages a year, so don't tell me about your stability.
Yeah.
Sorry. I had opening night. We had a transformer go out down in Wailea, and we lost a leg of power. It's like, so where's the stability?
Yeah, and in your situation, when you're manufacturing all of this product, if I can call it that, then it has you could lose a lot of resources.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, it could be very costly for you when that happens.
Absolutely.
Temperature variations or something like that, I imagine.
Every degree changes the flavor of the beer for sure. Yeah.
So it needs to be
controlled.
right? And controlled.
And in fairness, I don't want to bash Miko. I mean, they have become very supportive, I think, because they see that this is the future and the value of the data that we're going to have. If they play ball, there's access to all this data freely, and so I think, seeing how their tune has changed as we've been going through this,
become more collaborative,
has been good, much more collaborative.
That's great to hear.
It doesn't hurt that you're taking a megawatt of load off of them as well when HCNS shut down and they lost 5.
Oh, right.
That's true.
So that's kind of good math for them.
That definitely helps.
Yeah, that's true. No, I definitely feel like I'm doing more of the service. Don't get me wrong, but I don't want to come off like they're not being supportive. It's just it is so difficult times. At times I say 2045 is going to be here before we know it, and if we move at this pace, it'll be 3045. So it's like, let's do this. I'm ready. I'm ready to be 100% next year. Please get out of my way. Is really kind of how I want to approach every conversation.
Absolutely. Well, it's great to see that you're doing some of the hard work out there and kind of setting some precedents. I definitely Jay, did you want to jump in at all? I know Jay's over here kind of trying to get into the show a little bit. Do you have any burning questions for? He's like, whoa.
I just like I said, I just want to take the tour.
Yeah.
Like I haven't been able to see any for the folks at home. I haven't been able to see any of this. The couple interesting notes I had, obviously the Tesla power packs, that install was actually what put us on on our radar. Those, for those folks that don't know, it is the commercial version of the power wall, right? So you have your residential in-home, and then you have a commercial or utility scale battery. How many of those are there, and how big are they?
Right now, phase 1 is the version 1.0, and I think 2.0 came out like 3 months after 1.0 landed here, which kind of sucked. And of course, the wiring's all different and how you set them. But anyhow, 1.0, I think there's about 1 megawatt of storage, and there are, besides the site controller and the distribution gear, there's 9, I believe, cabinets that are about the size of the average kind of household refrigerator. And they're all white, so it kind of looks like a Kenmore, sitting out there. Much, much more expensive than a Kenmore, by the way. But, as I understand it, there are, tens of thousands of small batteries in each of those cabinets. And, they're just kind of set next to each other where there's a minimum spacing requirement. All the wires had to be run underneath in the concrete. So we had an actual template that had to go down before we could pour the concrete and set everything to, within a small tolerance so that those batteries could be lowered into place.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But, at peak, I think we'll have 27 of those cabinets, and that'll be 3 full phases of, I think it's what used to be the 250 kW with 750 megawatt, or 750 kilowatt is now like, I think they're 1500s or something like that. It's amazing. In 6 months, we'll have twice the storage and half the footprint again.
And you're still using the
nice
Tesla inverted commas Dynatech inverters, 250 kVA units to be able to do that. And ours is the first generators to be able to be paralleled into this system as well. This is completely new, to be able to parallel generators with the solar panels. So the solar panels and the generators are actually working together at the same time, which is not done normally. 3-phase 480 volt AC. So you've got the 480 volt DC that the power packs are running at, and then the Dynatech inverters then are basically balancing all of the reactive power to make the generator produce at a 1.0 power factor, which makes the generator as efficient as possible. And therefore we can fully use the full kVA rating of that generator, which is very handy as well to use the Cummins, because we have our generators aren't just whatever the engine can do, they stamp that on the side. Our QSL 9 engines are 700 horsepower, so when we have a 275 kilowatt engine or a kilowatt generator, it actually can produce way above that. So there's another system like this on island where they've been we've got two 200 kilowatt generators running on it, and they're continuously bringing that up to about 250 kVA and pulling that full amount from the generator, which is in fact 250 kilowatts of the generator's power. But luckily enough, those engines can produce 400 horsepower, so they can actually do that.
So they're really run tough.
Yeah. So in the times when Garrett absolutely, like, if everything fails all around him, the generators will be able to push basically that and then some to be able to produce as much power as he needs.
That's good to know. Yeah, really. I just love how smart he is too, because I didn't understand 98% of that. But
it's okay. No, we've our listeners.
Subtitles?
I'm going to get text messages. They're going to be like, "What's a KV? What's this? What's that?" We got a glossary of terms going up on the website, so I'll take you out for martini, and you can give me all the terms. Okay.
Too, Daithi and I met on a dive boat. One of our good friends, Keone, owns Pro Diver Maui, an awesome dive boat and dive school, by the way. But yeah, Daithi and I met with he gave me his business card and was like, I know one day we're going to need generators. And when that subject even came up, I was just like, call this guy. And obviously he's the right guy for the job when he can, speak so poetically and technically about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's so great that we know each other as well. So I know you're kind of like a major fixture in this conversation about how to get us to 100% renewables, Daithi. So
yeah, we're trying. We basically, the big thing for us is that our generators never actually get used, but they're there in the times that you actually do need them. What we want to do is basically be the platform, the kind of stability for all of these renewables to be used. So you can use, as much solar as you want, but in the times when you don't actually have solar or your charge is running down, that these generators can kick on, use the biodiesel for that amount of time, and then shut back off again. But just to be there as the emergency standby.
I know we don't have a lot of time, but I know a lot of listeners are probably thinking, generators, how are you going to be renewable with that? Obviously, the biodiesel B100 is a big part, but then the Tier 4 thing that...
Yeah, so they're Tier 4, which means they're on-road compliant. Which means they're as efficient and as carbon neutral. They don't put as much NOx and SOx into the environment, so they're up there as the most environmentally friendly diesel engines that are there at the moment.
Got it. And then using biodiesel, then even more so. Go ahead, Jay.
That's what I was going to say. You said your biodiesel comes from Pacific Biodiesel. Do you know the actual sources or?
I know they're working on sunflower. They've got that whole plant.
Yeah, we remember the sunflower debacle.
Yeah, and then a lot of waste restaurant oil from around the island. So
grease traps.
Yeah, grease traps primarily.
So we're rounding out the end of the show here, fellas, and I did want to ask you before it ends, like if there's anything. I know you got a distiller going in, right?
Yep.
What's in the future for NBC? Just within 60 seconds.
Yeah. So
I heard cocktails.
Yes, cocktails. Exactly. So obviously we're a craft brewery at our core, at our heart. That's what we will always be, but we're really morphing into a craft beverage company in addition to the restaurants. But so we make our beer. We also make a natural root beer. We're adding a ginger beer and a cola to that. All natural, no fake stuff, cane sugar, etc. And then we're going to be distilling whiskey, gin, and some other cool stuff from local agriculture. And then since we have those two, it makes sense to then combine those into canned craft cocktails. So we'll have really the cocktail arm, the spirits arm, the sodas with non-alc, and the beer, of course.
Excellent. Well, I'll tell you what, that was probably one of the most jam-packed, dense, awesome shows we've had. Wow. I can't thank you enough for coming on, telling us the whole story. My brother, thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
It's been great to be here.
Daithi, thank you, sir. Really good stuff.
Thank you both. Yeah.
And
it's always interesting to see how many industries, renewables, have really radically transformed over the past 10, 15 years, and we're still on the ramp.
Unbelievable. So we really look forward to seeing what comes next with Maui Brewing Company here with Garrett Marrero. and Daithi Mcgee. And so thanks so much, guys. We are the Solar Coaster. We are sponsored by Maui Solar Project, Tabuchi Electric America, Sonnen Battery, Pika Energy, and Sundrum Solar.
Sundrum Solar, everyone.
Come see us at the Queen Kalamani Center Mall and learn all about this great technology, and you'll hear from our great energy consultants. Hey, folks, thanks for listening, and have a wonderful weekend. Aloha Friday.